Hello, in today's video we got this 2001 Honda Odyssey, and we're going to be replacing the stabilizer bar links, otherwise known as the sway bar end links. It came in with knocking here on the left front side, and I noticed that these stabilizer bar links were in really bad shape, and if I move them with my hand, I could kind of hear the same knocking noise, just not as loud. The stabilizer bar, or otherwise known as the anti-roll bar, helps reduce body roll or sway on turns. Like if you've ever taken a hard turn, you notice that the weight of the vehicle tends to push towards the outer edge of the opposite side. Like say you're taking a hard left turn, the weight pushes towards the right. While the front suspension is also going to have to absorb this weight, so it's going to want to dip on the right side where all the weight is. While this is also going to take weight off of the left front tire, reducing its contact with the road. And this is known as body roll, and it isn't something we want to happen. So this is where the stabilizer bar or sway bar comes into play. As the body begins to roll, the anti-roll bar will twist on the side with all the weight and produce a downward force on the side that's lifting, thus keeping it from excessive body roll. So to make sure that we keep this part of our suspension working properly, we'll want to inspect our bushings and look for tears in the boots of the stabilizer bar links, since they retain the grease that lubricates them. A vehicle with bad stabilizer links may make the suspension feel less stable and loose on turns, rattling noises like this one had, and as with anything that's rattling or clunking, it may eventually break off. Well, let's go ahead and get started with our removal and replacement of our stabilizer bar links. For this upper one, we'll be using a deep socket 17mm. Hopefully it'll loosen and come off without holding the middle, but let's try that first. Well, better yet, let's try it with a longer ratchet. It should make loosening it a lot easier. Well, so far it looks like we won't need to hold the middle to get the nut off. It's coming right off. Well, it looks like I spoke too soon. In many cases, it'll have a way to hold it in the middle as you get the nut off, and in this case, we can use a 6mm hex bit socket to hold the middle and use a wrench to turn the outer nut. So we just put the ratchet on the socket and turn the nut with the wrench. But we don't want to take it off completely yet, since we still got to loosen the lower one. Now for this lower one, I'll start with a 17mm wrench. But same as the upper one, it's on here pretty tight. So I'm going to add another wrench to this one for more leverage. But this one looks like the middle is now starting to spin, and for this one we have another option to hold it, with the wrench back here. While in this case, I decided to go with a crescent wrench since it's the quickest option I have here, but for the actual wrench size, it'll be a 19mm wrench. This wrench method is definitely time consuming, so on the other side, I'll try a much faster approach. Well, let's go ahead and remove the nut and the lower part of the link entirely, followed by the upper one. One thing to note, if you're trying to do this and you only have one side lifted, it will be hard to remove them because of that twisting force I mentioned earlier. And with that, we remove our stabilizer bar link. And here we got our old stabilizer link next to our new replacement. And taking a look at our old one, the boot is entirely gone on one end. And that means it had no grease lubricating it, so all it could do at this point is wear out with every movement. Just look at all this play. No wonder it would get that clunky noise, more so on uneven roads. These new ones will definitely take care of that. The main difference here is that these come with grease fittings, so you will need to grease these up yourself after install. So if you don't have a grease gun, or prefer not to do this, they do make some that are pre-greased and sealed, like this one. But I'll be using these with the grease fittings, and before installing them on the car, let's install these zerk fittings, screwing them in by hand, and then tightening them with a 10mm wrench. With both fittings on, let's install a stabilizer link on the car. Sliding the top one in first, and now install and tighten the nut by hand. Followed by the lower one, and also the nut. And for these new ones, they do have a bigger nut, so we'll need a 19mm socket. First we'll try bringing it down without holding the back. It may tighten this way. But if you need it, the wrench to hold it in the back will also be different. And for this we'll need a 16mm wrench. But we don't want to tighten it fully just yet. Now on this lower one, this time I'll use a short socket 19mm with a ratchet. And if we have to, we can hold it with the same 16mm wrench, but in our case I didn't have to. At this point, we can go ahead and final tighten or torque this one down. Followed by tightening or torquing down this upper one as well. For this upper one, I did have to hold it with the wrench. Now for our final step, using our grease gun to put grease in our stabilizer links. For this step, all we do is click it onto the zerk fitting and pump it a few times, then you will notice the boot begin to inflate. Once it does that, it should be a good amount. And that should do it. Now we just clean the area off and repeat on the other. And that should do it. Now just clean this one off as well. Well, that'll just about do it for this video. I hope you were able to find it helpful and informative. If so, please click that thumbs up button to support my video and my channel. And please subscribe if you haven't done so.